What's up, Mr. fucking Desert Dime?
Since it is super windy outside this whole week, I decided to record with the garage doors down, and I'm recording on my phone microphone. So if the audio sounds a little goofy or a little echoey, I'm sorry about that. But let's get into today's video. So for years, I toyed around with the idea of removing my sway bar for better off-road performance, but I always had these fears in my mind that would always stop me from doing it. But during my recent rebuild, since I was already tearing apart the entire front end and already taking parts of the sway bar off, I thought I might as well just take it off right now and try it out. And since then, I have not looked back and I have not put it back on. So guys, in today's video, we are gonna be going over the fears I had about removing my sway bar, the pros and cons of removing your sway bar, and my experience overall since I have taken the sway bar off. Now guys, before we get into the video, I need to set new goals for this year, for this channel, and for this community. And my goal for this year is 5,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So guys, if you aren't subscribed already, go ahead and subscribe for installs, reviews, off-roading on trails, off-roading in the desert, build breakdowns, and so much more. Even giveaways coming up this year, guys. So go ahead and subscribe, share it with your friends, share it with your family, share it with your off-road buddies. And with that being said, let's get into the video. So first off, let's go ahead and start with the fears that I had for the past few years when trying to decide if I wanted to take the sway bar off or not. So the fears I had in my mind were, and again, this isn't through any research or through hearing it from somebody else. It was more so just things that I had made up in my mind or things that I had thought would happen if I took it off. So the two fears were essentially a higher chance of rolling over because there's no sway bar stabilizing the two sides. So I thought, with all that extra body roll, I'm gonna roll over if I take too drastic of a turn or something. And the other fear was less control of a vehicle, not in everyday driving, but I guess in a more scary situation, I guess. Like if there's an evasive maneuver or a crash in front of you or something, I thought I would have a lot less control over the vehicle now that it's not, tied together on both sides. And again, I don't know if there was any validity to that at all. It was just things that I'd thought in my mind with no experience, I guess. So with those fears out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into the actual pros and cons of taking your sway bar off of your vehicle. So obviously the big number one, if not the only pro of taking the sway bar off of your off-road vehicle is for better off-road performance. Now I'm gonna try to give you guys a visual since I have my sway bar off and try to explain it without actually showing it with a diagram or anything. But essentially with the sway bar off, it allows both your tires, both sides of the vehicle to flow independently and freely of each other and not be tied together. Let me pull the sway bar up right now and I'll kind of try to explain it to you guys using the sway bar. All right, I hope this doesn't mess with the mic audio too much. I'm gonna try to be gentle with it. So this is your sway bar. You have the bar itself and you have the two links, one on each end that bolt into your sway bar. Right here, you're gonna have rubber bushings and a plate that goes and bolts the whole sway bar to your frame. So with it bolted to the frame right here, this part's not moving. The only articulation you have is within the two links right here and a little bit of flexibility within the bushings, I'd say. Not a whole lot. Say the suspension on this end needs to compress while the suspension on this side needs to droop out. It's gonna go and pull it just as far as those bushings are allowing it to and as far as these links are allowing it to, which is again, not a lot because you just have little pivot points and a little bit of rubber flexing. So it can really only go so far on each side in the directions it needs to before it's getting restricted by this bar since it's bolted to the frame and bolted into each spindle. So with that completely disconnected, now if this side needs to get compressed, it can go all the way up because there's nothing connecting it to the other side, and this side can droop all the way down completely freely. And there's nothing limiting them because there's nothing tied between them. So they could just go whatever direction they need to go all by themselves and let the shocks put in the work, not this bar restricting the shocks from what they need to do. I'm not sure if that was the best explanation of it. I'm sure there's videos out there with computer generated diagrams and videos that can actually show you what I'm trying to talk about. Now for the con of it. The con, again, it does give you more body roll, but I don't know if I would personally call that a con. I kind of like the feeling of the body roll. It's kind of nice and it's kind of cool in corners and stuff to feel it leaning like a boat and stuff. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think of that. Do you guys think that's a pro or a con, the body roll with no sway bar? And another con, which I guess there was validity to one of my fears, is a possibility of rolling over. But I think that's more so, again, if it's a very drastic, like jerky, evasive maneuver. If you're getting it sideways or something, you're trying to correct, who knows. But I don't think it's a common thing as far as daily driving. You're not going to have a higher chance of rolling over with daily driving and normal turns and everything. I think it would have to be a unique situation and unique circumstances to actually have no sway bar affect your rollover rate. So now let's jump into my experiences with driving my Tacoma with no sway bar over the past, I don't know how long, it's probably been like 2 months now. Now let me throw a little disclaimer in there for you guys. I did take the sway bar off the same exact time that I was adding my spindle lift. So either way, if I left the sway bar on or off, there were gonna be different feelings in how the truck drove and how it handled because I'm adding the lift spindles to it. So I'm not entirely sure what feelings can be attributed to the sway bar being removed or if they were attributed to the spindles being added. But regardless, completely different feel night and day when I did that whole change at the same time. So my experiences with the sway bar off, my fears were radically out of proportion in my head back before I took it off when I was thinking all these bad things could happen. Sure, you do get a little bit of body roll. If you're doing like normal daily driving around town, you don't really feel it. Personally, in my case, I didn't really notice it. I didn't feel it whatsoever. It's when you're doing sort of like drastic lane changes or drastic turns or at high speeds turning is when you really feel it. Yeah, the body roll and the day-to-day driving really isn't changed all that much. Now, the biggest thing in my experience out of removing it is obviously, again, the off-road performance. That's the main reason every off-road guy takes off their sway bars. It's the main reason why you should take off your sway bar is, again, it frees up both sides to flow independently of each other and they can really put in the work on their respective sides without kind of limiting each other, if that makes sense. So when like I said, I off-roaded for 4 years, I felt what it felt like to have both sides tied together. I felt the limitations and I didn't really recognize the limitations until I took off the sway bar and went off-roading without it. As soon as I felt it for the first trip out, where both sides were truly flowing independently of itself, I realized that they were being limited so much by the sway bar. The off-road performance with and without a sway bar is night and day. It is so drastic, it's almost insane. Like I can't believe I went that long off-roading with a sway bar. And that is the main reason why I have not looked back since I took it off. That is the main reason I will never put it back on. And I guarantee any off-roader that is off-roaded with it on and off-roaded with it off will tell you the same exact thing, that they are not going to put it back on. It's crazy. Like, it's something I would recommend you try if you're comfortable with it and if you think it's safe for your build and your driving capabilities. I just can't explain how freely each side floats, and you really feel each side floating just butter on their own terms. You know, they're not restricted to what the other side is doing. It's just incredible to feel. At the end of the day, if you're on the fence, here's what I would recommend to you. It is super simple to remove your sway bar. It is literally a few bolts here and there on the front end. I recommend you take the sway bar off. It takes 10, 15 minutes at most. Drive around for a few days, take it on an off-road trip without a sway bar, get a feel for it, see how you like it. If you don't like it, again, it's only a few bolts, 10, 15 minute job. You could throw it right back on if you don't like how it is without it, and go about your business with your sway bar on. It's no skin off your back. It's just a little bit of time and elbow grease, but I guarantee you're not going to want to put it back on once you take it off. Let me know your guys' thoughts on sway bar removals down in the comments. Make sure you subscribe if you're not already. Share it with your friends. And guys, I will catch you in the next one.
Welcome to my party, we're just getting started. A life is a dream or a nightmare scarring. Hand me a drink cause I think I'm going all in. Get me a shrink who can